Today on WGVU's Decision 2018 Candidate Forum, we profile U.S. House of Representatives candidates as a lead up to the November general election. Hear directly from the candidates as we ask them about key issues. This is an opportunity for you, the voter, to make an informed decision. Welcome to Decision 2018, the U.S. House of Representatives Candidate Forum. Today, we turn our attention to the U.S. House of Representatives race in Michigan's 3rd Congressional District. Today's forum with our first guest was recorded Tuesday, August 21st, from the studios of the Meyer Public Broadcast Center at Grand Valley State University. Now, let us begin by introducing U.S. Taxpayers Party candidate Ted Gerard from Grand Rapids. Ted, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Patrick.
Not your first go-round. You also ran in this race, 2 years ago?
2 years ago and also in 2010.
A lot has changed in those 2 years. One in particular involves the environment. We are having issues with PFAS being discovered in private drinking wells in Belmont and in Rockford. In your opinion, what is the government's role in this discovery and in the research and in the cleanup when it comes to the government and with the EPA?
The government's role would be to ensure that the truth is revealed as far as cause and fault, and also that the cleanup or cleanup measures that are necessary to care for the citizens is carried out in a reasonable manner.
We'll move on to immigration. Immigration greatly debated in this country. How would you fix the immigration system if you were a member of Congress? What would be the path to citizenship? Should there be a wall? How would we finance it? There are a lot of tentacles here when it comes to the immigration policy.
Well, there's two immensely different immigration situations. There's the southern border, which has a large number of people coming across that are dealing in human trafficking and drugs and gang violence, and we really need strong measures to curtail that. Then there's the general immigration issue where we're bringing people in from around the world as students and professionals, and that system actually needs to be made easier in many cases. If somebody wants to come to our country to add to the benefit of our country, and we need them, then the system for them to come in should be good and easy. But the system for criminals to come in should be very difficult. We should not be capturing people 10 feet inside our border and housing them in our prisons for 6 to 8 months trying to figure out if we should send them back or not. It should be a quick turnaround.
In that circumstance, is there a path to citizenship that works?
For the criminals or for...
In general, with the current setup that we have in this country. Would you change the system, I guess?
The system to citizenship right now, or even legal immigration status, to be here as a legal resident, is cumbersome. I have a few friends who have been through the system, and one was told by her attorney that the best way to do this is to actually outstay your visa because it will get you a court date.
And that's the system? That's
the system.
I asked about a wall, funding a wall. Is that something that you're in favor of or opposed to?
A physical wall, depending on how you do it, is ridiculous for the entire length of the southern border. A virtual wall, giving the Border Patrol freedom to do their jobs is very important.
Healthcare, also something debated in this country, much like immigration. The Affordable Care Act was implemented a few years ago.
Sadly.
And we'll get to that. So, Affordable Care Act, is this something that should be repealed, replaced? Let the market determine health care in America? Where do you come down on the issue?
So the Affordable Care Act gives the government control over our personal health care through the mechanism of finance. And we have seen two things to be true of things the government controls. Number one is they get expensive, and number two, they don't work well. So that is definitely a negative for government-controlled health care. The other end of the spectrum, when you have strictly privatized or private sector for-profit, you then have market forces determining who is best, and those same market forces bring prices down. Does there need to be regulation in there? Yes. Does there need to be accountability in there for those who harm their patients or put forth bad drugs for whatever reason? I mean, how many commercials do you see on TV of, call us, we're suing this drug manufacturer? Well, that drug was approved by the government, or it wouldn't be on the market. So we need a true accountability system for those who are producing the drugs and are providing the health care.
So that's the sweet spot, is to find some type of regulation.
Correct.
But where would that regulation come from?
Well, it has to come from state government according to the Constitution, and then when you start with the interstate medical practices, it would have to come from the federal government according to the Constitution.
We're going to get into economics here. Just about every politician I'll talk with will say job creation number one. So I guess, how would you create jobs? Secondly, we're in an era where tariffs are now impacting the economy. Give me your sense of how you feel about the economy now, a type of policy you would like to see Congress embrace, and then, of course, yourself as a job creator.
Well, myself as a job creator has been creating and growing businesses over a period of 20 years. And so I know how the process works. I just started a trucking company this year, and I'm still finding out a new form that has to be filled out and submitted every day. The cost of establishing a new business in the United States is phenomenal. The trucking business is more intense because you're impacting a lot of people when you're driving on the roads, large vehicles and so forth. So there is more to it than when I established the electrical contracting business 18 years ago. But the amount of regulation that's involved, filing a form every year to tell the government that I'm still doing business under the same name at the same address, that is a duplicate of a form that I have to file every year that says what the name of my business is and what address I'm doing business at.
So rolling back, regulation is one way to get the economy going.
Getting regulation out of the way and not tying the hands of people who are trying to grow business. But again, accountability for those who step out and cause injury to others in whatever manner that may be.
U.S. Taxpayers Party candidate Ted Gerard.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you so much. We continue our candidate forum. This portion was recorded Monday, August 27th with Democrat Kathy Albro from Middleville. Thank you for joining us. How are you?
Thank you, Patrick. I'm great.
First foray into politics?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Learning experience so far?
Yes, but I love it.
Okay, I was going to say, are you enjoying it?
It's a life experience I would have never had, and I love it. Yes,
All right.
I love meeting people.
So when you knock on doors, these are some of the topics that may come up. So let's start with environmental concerns.
All right.
We've had issues with PFAS, PFOA, Belmont, Rockford. The government's response, what are the expectations? What would you expect from the EPA in these situations?
Well, I would expect higher standards from the EPA to begin with, that our chemicals are tested so that we know which chemicals are I can never say that word, carcinogenics, And we can be prepared for that and make sure that they're not contaminating our water, our air, or whatever, soil. So first of all, higher standards, higher protections. But when it is discovered, which I have heard that this was discovered many, many years ago and hidden from the public, and then recently EPA was trying to hide it from us. So we need to make sure there's full transparency and that we know, as best as science can determine. Now, we learn new things every day, so we may not know of toxins that are already in our water that we're going to discover 10 years from now. But when we know it's a toxin, we need to act on it quickly.
So congressional leaders need to be the watchdogs as well.
Exactly, right. And they need to set the standard for states so that states do not have lesser standards than the EPA.
Immigration. This debate has been going on for years. Right now we're debating DACA, we're debating the pathway to citizenship, building a wall, how to fund a wall. So this is an all-encompassing question, even visas. Where are you on this immigration debate? What do you think is the proper policy?
I think a fair and humane policy is what we need to be thinking about. We don't want to separate families. Even if they have come to this country illegally, they still are human beings and they have lives that are important to them. So I believe that our DACA, no longer children, adults, should be given a path to citizenship quickly, and they should be able to have a life worry-free from being arrested or having some kind of a problem with the law, unless they are not abiding by the law. I believe that we need work visas that include families, and families or people should not have to go back to Mexico to renew their visas, that it should be a continuous visa. And I also believe that we need a fair immigration policy instituted. Hopefully once I get to Congress, we'll work on that. The one from 2014 should have been voted on in Congress, and it wasn't.
Securing the border?
The borders, yes. I believe that we should have secure borders, but I also believe that Mexico and the people from Mexico are our friends, and we need to make sure that we have fair ways that they can enter our country.
Would you fund a new border wall?
Absolutely not. I thought Mexico was going to do that.
We'll end it there, I take it. I mean, there are technologies that can be used as well.
Exactly, right. And that's just the thing, is that even if we wanted to build a wall, the terrain would not accommodate such a wall. So there are definitely technologies that can be instituted for that.
Healthcare. Do you support the Affordable Care Act? Should it be repealed, replaced? Should the marketplace take care of health care?
I believe every person has a right to health care, which means universal health care. I also believe that we need to study the problem, and from my research and from what I know about what's happening in Canada and other countries, single payer is the best solution. I'd be open to hearing other solutions, but from what I know right now, single payer is most economical and most efficient.
Would that be as a form of a Medicare expansion?
Well, I don't want to say Medicare expansion, because Medicare has its flaws too, and there are many co-pays. I'm on Medicare now myself, and I know that there are co-pays that are sometimes unplanned, or deductibles. So we want to make sure that everybody knows what to expect as far as payment goes, and that for the most part, basic health care is free. Well, not free. The taxes will go up, but in the end, the costs will be lower.
This is kind of a two-part question here. Expanding the economy, that's part one. Politicians will talk about they want to be job creators, so I guess how would you be a job creator? The second part of this question is the idea of isolationism and tariffs, and where you are when it comes to the stance that this White House has taken on tariffs. Is it a good idea? In the long run, will it benefit the country? So we'll start with job creation and work our way to the tariffs.
Okay. Well, job creation, I believe in workers' rights. I'm a strong proponent of unions. I was a teacher, so I was a member of the MEA, and my husband has a pension from the MEA, so I know that it's a valuable organization. So I believe that employers need to think about their employees more, making sure they have a livable wage and family benefits so that they can have a time with their families and they don't have to work 70, 80 hours a week just to be able to put food on the table. I also believe that as a small business owner, I received SBA loans to grow my business. So I would like to see more opportunity for people who have good ideas that maybe don't have the funds to start a business or to grow a business to have access to grants and low-interest loans or no-interest loans.
So in Congress, you would support more SBA programs?
Type of, and other types of programs that would help support new entrepreneurs.
Tariffs?
Yes.
Short-term, long-term, your thought on tariffs?
I think it was just such a knee-jerk reaction to be adding tariffs to our friends, too, not just China, you know, maybe those were some legitimate tariffs that we probably should consider because of what's happening with the trade with China. But I think in the long run, it sounds like, from what I've been reading and listening, that the tariffs are going to be a detriment and increase costs in this country. So I would like to take a longer view and determine the outcomes of what all of this would cause.
As a strategy, is it a good idea when negotiating some of the trade agreements?
It could be. I have a lot to learn yet, and I don't want to talk as if I know exactly what I'm talking about. So it probably could be. I also think that NAFTA needs to be renegotiated, which it's in the process right now, but we need to make sure that workers' rights and the environment is also included in those negotiations.
Democrat Kathy Albro, thank you so much.
Thank you. Nice to talk to you.
Thank you. And we wrap up our candidate forum, this portion recorded Monday, September 10th, with the incumbent Republican U.S. Representative Justin Amash from Cascade Township. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me on, Patrick.
I know you're a busy man these days.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about the issues. In the district, we're dealing with groundwater contamination. We've seen it in Belmont. We've seen it in Rockford. Who knows where it might appear next? We're starting to see it in other portions of the state. A number of the Air Force bases, military bases that are using substances that contain PFAS. What is the role of government here? What is the EPA's response in your mind?
Well, I think that the federal government and the state government have to work together. And there are a lot of military bases that are involved, and that's, of course, a federal responsibility. So at the federal level, we are looking at it. We're monitoring it very carefully. We've signed letters as a delegation, and I think that to the extent that the federal government can help decipher what's going on and certainly help in cleaning up things that are federal responsibility, that's critically important. And the state, of course, has a role as well. To make sure that people aren't being poisoned.
Are you satisfied with the response so far?
I think we can do a better job. I think people were a little bit slow at first, but it's a chemical that people weren't really aware was a contaminant for a long time, and people were using it for a long time without that awareness. So it takes a little while to assess how bad the problem is, but now that we've got it figured out, I think we need to address it more rapidly.
You've appeared on West Michigan Week a number of times. We've talked about immigration policy in the past with DACA and a pathway to citizenship. Some things have changed in time.
Mm-hmm.
There's discussion of how to fund a wall. We're looking now at some of the work visa issues. We've had separations of families. What is, in your mind, what is the correct path forward? And if you can detail some of this, to the U.S. immigration policy, how should this be handled?
Well, it's very complicated, and the Republican Party has moved in a direction away from immigration, even legal immigration. So that's been troubling and difficult for me as a congressman, as a person who supports immigration. And my parents are immigrants, and we all know the importance of immigrants to this country. So I think we need to create some kind of pathway to legal status for people who are here illegally. We need to be compassionate toward people who are fleeing dangerous situations. There are asylum seekers who are coming to this country who, many of them, they're doing it because they're worried they're going to be killed. They're worried for their children. And sometimes, yes, they come to the United States and they don't go through the port of entry because they're just trying to get out of wherever they were and they want to get here safely. So they're doing what they can for their families, and I think we need to be respectful and compassionate. We need to have an orderly process. We shouldn't be, of course, trying to put people at the front of the line who are coming in here deceptively. If you're coming here as an asylum seeker but you're not really seeking asylum, well, then you need to go back and come in the right way. But there are a lot of people who are coming here because they're desperate, and we need to be respectful. So I think we need to make sure that our immigration system is stable, is working for Americans and working for people who are coming here. And right now, it seems like neither party is quite there.
And then there's talk of building a wall, and how do you fund this wall?
Yeah, well, the president has said Mexico would pay for the wall. So as far as I'm concerned, they can build the wall when Mexico pays for it. And I think they need to address eminent domain issues as well. There are a lot of people along the border who are having their property taken because of the construction of a wall. So that's not right. And we need to be respectful of people who live in that area and make sure that they are being treated the right way.
The Affordable Care Act, repeal, replace? Do you let just the free market system dictate and I guess kind of take care of health care in America? Where do you stand on, I guess, government involvement in health care?
Well, the federal government shouldn't really be involved in health care. It's a state-level issue, and it's a private sector issue. To the extent we can reform the current system, though, there may be some federal involvement, of course, because you might have incremental changes. From my perspective, as a long-term goal, we should have a generally free market healthcare system where people can go and make decisions about how they want their health care, how they want to pay for it, how much insurance they want to get, what kind of insurance they want to get. And then there should be some sort of safety net. Now, maybe at first that safety net's at the federal level. I think it would be more appropriately done at the state level. But you have some safety net for people who are in desperate situations, people who have pre-existing conditions, people who absolutely can't afford health care and they have nowhere else to turn. You're going to have some level of benefits for them. And instead of calling it insurance, we should just call it benefits. People are going to receive benefits from the federal government or from the state government. And that's okay as long as we have a generally free market system.
How would you curb costs?
So I think if you had a more market-oriented system, costs would come down dramatically for most people. And then, of course, you'd have that safety net, and that would cost quite a bit of money. But I think that taxpayers would be more understanding of paying for that safety net as long as the other healthcare costs are coming down through competition.
All right. We'll move on to free trade. Every politician wants to be the job creator, so I guess in your mind, how do you create jobs? But also, we're seeing tariffs that are being put in place and how that's impacting really the global economy and the U.S. economy. So we'll start out with jobs and then we'll wrap up with tariffs.
Well, to bring back jobs or grow jobs, and the economy is doing really well right now. So, but to create more jobs, you need to have a low level of regulations and low level of taxation. I think that's critical, and I think that's actually an area where I'd give the president high marks, generally speaking, that he's helped reduce regulations and he's signed our tax reform. It wasn't as great a tax reform as I would have liked, but I think it was helpful to the economy. As for tariffs, there's no doubt that tariffs are harmful to Americans. Tariffs are taxes on Americans. When the U.S. imposes tariffs on other countries, on the goods coming from other countries, that's a tax on Americans. It's not a tax on the other countries. So you have the president pushing for tax cuts in one area and tax increases in another area. And I think those tax increases are hurting many businesses within the district. I've had many businesses reach out to me saying they're being harmed substantially by tariffs. Some of them are worried about their tariff costs going up something like 10 times. So we need to reduce tariffs. We need to eliminate tariffs. The president claims it's part of a long-term strategy, but then at other times he says he loves tariffs. So it's not clear which one it is. I think that he should cut the tariffs, and Congress has responsibility here too. We abdicated our power over tariffs and taxation. We gave that over to the president. We should reclaim that power, and the president should not be able to put tariffs on like this without going through Congress.
Republican U.S. Representative Justin Amash.
Thanks,
Thank you
Patrick.
so much. I'd like to thank all the candidates for taking the time to join us for this Decision 2018 Candidate Forum. We asked the candidates questions on a number of issues. The extended interviews can be found at wgvu.org/politics. From all of us here at WGVU Public Media, please get out and vote.